That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're live, and I'm slapping my mouth around. We're walking into the mind of madness. We're talking about Heroclix Popper and states and how it went. I've been through an event, the only event I'm going to be able to make, unfortunately, this week. But I figured it's best to share my results of this event so that everybody can just kind of understand and kind of be a part of it. Prep yourself for this weekend if your event is actually this weekend. All that kind of fun stuff. So that's where we're at today. Not much to talk about this week. Been working out, watching wrestling a lot. And we did the event. So we're also going to cover some of the questions that we get a lot of questions from one particular user on Move and Attack, and we've unfortunately had a few weeks where we've kind of got stuck backlogging, and it's actually weeks turned into months, and we had about 35 entries in the Move and Attack questions. So we were able to handle about 20 questions on the show, just on the way to Whitby, and then we have our Post-Mortem on Whitby coming up. I should be able to slap that all together within the next day or two. We'll probably see it come up on the weekend. So hopefully we can get that out for you guys by then. But that said, let's talk a little bit more in depth about how things went and what we've discovered from this past week generally in the Popper States format. And a couple things have kind of come to light. There are a number of teams that are just really good in the format. Now, one of the things you'll notice is in a format that kind of takes everything and turns it into a small group of figures, certain archetypes tend to repeat themselves. The Avengers archetype has repeated itself quite a bit, this being using Voyager to carry multiple characters and getting some pretty big bombs off after a round of carrying. There are Nimrod-focused teams that take Nimrod as 175 points of your team, make him either better or surround him with stuff, and attempt to make use of that. There are teams surrounding Onslaught as just your figurehead. There's also the archetype of just flat-out WWE wrestlers. And then there's varying degrees of all of these examples, especially once you get into the more competitive zones. There's the monster, like one example of the Onslaught team. Onslaught is only 125 points of a team, so there's actually more variation on the Onslaught variant than there would say be on Nimrod variations or say WWE teams, because WWE will try to generally have 3 to 5 really solid WWE wrestlers on their team just to kind of focus out the team. So I, for one, played a Nimrod team that was focused on making a ton of Sentinels as best I could, or Friends of Humanity, and doing what I could with those. In the rounds, I ended up losing to the two players who ended up in the top 2 positions, and I had a very bad last round as far as trying to fight through some shape change rules and whatnot. Them's the breaks. I can't do much about that. So, all that aside, I had a ton of fun with the format. It was definitely interesting. There were some variation, but for the most part, it was a lot of what I expected to see, to be 100% brutally honest. In your preparations for the event, if you still have an event coming up this weekend, if you do not plan on playing any of the teams that I just talked about, these are teams you need to be prepared for. The Avengers Rush goes forward and beats you up. And in the case of against a Nimrod, kills everything but Nimrod and tries to stay away from him. Nimrod creates dudes, and you at some point are going to find yourself attacking Nimrod. And unfortunately, that's its own crapshoot, because it's a crapshoot to hit him, and then when you do hit him, Onslaughts, of course, you got to find a way to get close to him. And you kind of have to figure out the same thing for WWE teams. So, Nimrod WWE teams has a lot of the same issues to deal with. And what's more is it's really hard to just stay away from Nimrod. He is not an easy character to just outright avoid. If he can pull you to an outdoor map, he can see you. If you If you get in close, he'll put you away somewhere. He's a super potent character. If you can get him past his first couple clicks and just find a way to do free damage to him, is probably your best bet. Which is why WWE characters do have a notable effect against him, but you do have to get the jump on him somehow. So, all things to consider when you're playing any of these teams and what you're supposed to be expecting. So, all in all, the format was interesting. I don't want to necessarily see it more than like once or twice per year. And it was, while it was fun, it was and its own unique thing. I don't want the format to kind of be beaten into the ground, and just kind of leave it as a big solid treat where it's like, hey, what's good in commons and uncommons this year, and just kind of leave it, and then just go on with our year while spending the entire year talking about, hey, this will be good in this upcoming Pauper format. And that's kind of where I see the format right now. Leave it for this second round of states. I know the second round of states was supposed to be replacing a round of sealed, and a lot of stores had a problem with trying to run a sealed, which makes a lot of sense to me if you ask me. So, as far as teams that have won, they're all kind of all over the place. Avengers is out there. There's a Star Trek team out there that's won. A WWE team. Don't necessarily kind of look at these teams that won outside of their zones, because you have to always look at the local metagame. States tournaments are not particularly highly populated by players. There's not a ton of players going to a states event in comparison to, say, nationals, worlds. These will be locally focused. So while one team may be dominant across a bunch of them, if that team doesn't show up at one of them, you might see a weird result on them. So brace yourself, be aware, tabulate your information as best you can. I haven't personally been able to collect enough information on the teams that have won, but I do know that repeating patterns are happening, and just brace yourself for that kind of stuff. Also, Yafet, I was kind of saw that guy coming as a strong figure. I just totally forgot to grab my Orville starter kit and get use of him, because woof, boy did he do a number on me. I mean, all he did was create sidestep, but that sidestep's enough when you're just getting enough range on an onslaught and he sidesteps away. He's not supposed to do that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk as far as Pauper is concerned and get you guys prepped for it. I wanted to spend the rest of the time today kind of playing catch up with Move and Attack. So those of you who may or may not be familiar, we have a show called Move and Attack, where when we're traveling to and from events, we film ourselves and answer some questions from a neat little submission form that we have just down below in the comments there. Or not in the comments, the description. This is the new format for the channel, so I don't know if you can see the description right now. I don't know how this new YouTube setup. This is my first time not using classic mode, because we now have to kind of address whether or not we are made for kids or not. I always go with the safe. We are not necessarily following the COPPA provisions for kids content, because we're pretty freeform, but we're not specifically trying to follow any sort of rules on things. So just thought I'd throw that out there. While we are trying to maintain a family-friendly environment, we are not exclusively created with children in mind, and just I don't want to follow rules. I'm a rebel, man. I'm a rebel. That said, one of our fans is really good at asking a lot of questions. And unfortunately, we were not able to squeeze it into the trip to Whitby. Coming back, I've decided that asking the questions on the way back, if the ride isn't like 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to avoid it, just because it's, I need that time on the way back is a little bit of time to reflect, and I usually start a little late or something like that. Anyway, that aside, let's get into this. So this is the fan who submits these questions. His name is Malcolm Rush. He's a fan out in Japan. Watches the show, watches the channel, watches a lot of Heroclix content, because he does send these questions to a lot of other Heroclix content creators. And so we do enjoy kind of giving him the time, because he's very far away from a lot of players who are submitting questions. So starting off, it's hot and humid in Japan. And Japan had just had an earthquake about an hour ago. Now, I don't know about the timing on this one and when he wrote that, so I hope you are shaken but not stirred. No damage, but it was about 2 minutes or so. Well, that answers that question. So let's talk about elements and weather in Heroclix. Best and worst Heroclix players that use the 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. I mean, there's the best is obviously just multiple versions of Crystal, and worst is probably about the same because, yeah, I mean, if I was to go on individual characters, like there's Terra, pretty cool, but Geoforce, I think Geoforce is based on Earth-based powers, and he just sucks. Heroclix wise. Best sculptures for Earth, Wind, Fire, Water. Okay, so Fire, there was I believe the character's name is Fire. And there was, like, back in Collateral Damage, I believe this was Rookie, Experienced, Veteran, and all of them were actually different colors. Very cool. I thought that was really neat. Water. What's a good water figure? Tiger Shark. A lot of the Atlanteans look good splashing out of water. Oh, no. Diving under the water, Namor. That is the best looking thing. That was the coolest figure I've ever seen in my life, even though it was absolutely off the wall ridiculous. Wind, I'm going to put it with that new JSA character whose name I forgot. But she's a treat to say. Why did I accidentally open Internet Explorer? Under what circumstances, Windows, do you think I'm ever going to do that? What is the character's name? I think she was in Rebirth, and I think she's a rare. I'm just pulling it up now myself. Cyclone. Her name is Cyclone. And Earth Terra, I think I said. There's a Terra that's riding a rock, I believe. Wind is going to be Cyclone. Water is going to be that diving Namor. And worst fire is, as I said, Fire. As far as worst of each of these, that's a little bit harder to kind of judge because there's not really bad ones with a lot of these. If I was to give a bad Wind... Yeah. There was something recently where it's just like a character with wind coming out of their hands, I want to say. No, wait a second. There's something in the Flash that was just... I kind of looked at it and went, eh. It was a better figure for performance, but not exactly the best looking. And we're going with sculptures right now as it is. So, believe... Flash. Oh my goodness. Flash was in 2014. Oh, Flash was 5 years ago, kids. Tornado Twins. That was dumb looking. It wasn't, I mean, people disagree with me, and I accept that you will. It was a really bad looking Fire figure, though. Tar Pit, probably also from the Flash set. Not particularly. No, Tar Pit looked cool. Who am I kidding? Heatwave was kind of boring. We'll go with Heatwave. Water. Who's bad looking with water? Man, I let myself get caught off guards on these, and it's really difficult to just kind of pull these water. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say Hydro Man, and not because Hydro Man looked bad, but because he consistently didn't come with his card. The heck with that. Alright, if you make a team with only one element, which elements would you pick and why? And what would your team build? I'd probably go with Fire because it would be a lot of Psychic Blast. Building a full team, though, I don't have time for that. You got a lot of questions for me, Malcolm, so unfortunately. But just find a bunch of guys with Psychic Blast and make them better. Firefly. We'll start with Firefly and go from there. Now let's talk about the weather. I know there's some crossover with the elements, but here's some difference. Best and worst Heroclix characters with weather powers. There's a weather wizard from way back that was just terrible. And best with weather powers? Weather powers? The weather? You know what? I'm going to give the Tornado Twins a little bit of credit. They were better in performance than they were in look. Best and worst sculptures using weather powers. Well, I already said that Tornado Twins looked ugly as butt. But I'm going to give Weather Wizard some... There was an older Weather Wizard, and I want to talk about the one from the Flash. There's one even older than that. That was complete butt. I think the site was Crisis for that. Not Crisis. Was it Crisis? I don't know. Weather Wizard looks pretty cool for what he is. All right. And best and worst maps for Earth, Wind, Fire. That's not really. I mean, there's the best water map in the Pacific Ocean. It's probably the best use of water maps ever. Nothing really represented fire except for like that. There's that one from the Gotham City the Gotham City event. I can't remember what it was called, but the gang warfare or whatever it was that just flipped to the other side. No Man's Land. And the other side of the same map, it was just like fire. No Man's Land was the event. I don't remember what the exact map was. All right, next up with X-Men animated series, Dark Phoenix Saga about to come out last year. Oh, this one's dating itself. Last year we got Batman the animated series. Next year we're gonna get Justice League Unlimited. Let's talk about cartoons. Note all Heroclix must be versions based on TV or movie cartoons. Well, that limits us. Best, worst, and favorite character that's based on a cartoon version of that character. Best is probably. Oh man, the Phantasm. Who am I kidding? The best Phantasm. The best is Phantasm. Actually, I'll put that as under favorite. Thanks, Kenji. That was a really cool figure, to say the least. I'm just kind of pulling up Batman Animated just to ring my bell, as it were. So favorite's gonna be Phantasm. The best is the Riddler, because he's just a Riddler. He's so comic booky or cartoony Riddler. Just can't get your hands on him because he's tricking you. That kind of situation. And worst representation or worst HeroClix based on it. I mean, in isolation and in a vacuum, I'm gonna say the DDs. But once you get two of them, that's when they improve. So, in a vacuum, DD. Best, worst, and favorite sculpture. They're all good. The cartoon animated series ones have been good, so I can't really say best. Or can't say worst. Best. Based on an animated series character, I'm gonna go with the Superman. They really captured that square-jawed Superman from that Superman series, Batman series rather. Which HeroClix characters do you want or don't want to be included in the Justice League Unlimited animated set? Don't want. There's nothing I don't want. I want everything from that series. Because if I remember correctly, and Amber, correct me if I'm wrong, Justice League Unlimited had the Detective Chimp at one point in it, right?
Yeah, it had like all of the random people.
So, I want Detective Chimp. You can take all other characters out. You give me Detective Chimp. Which cartoons do you enjoy as a child and now as an adult? Well, most of you are adults. I'm a child at heart. As a kid, I enjoyed a lot of cartoons. If we want to talk about childhood, like when I was a very small child, I was definitely a fan of He-Man. Eventually grew up to the Gummy Bears, but DuckTales definitely had like the biggest influence, I think, on my life. Though I wish I was as rich as Scrooge McDuck or had that kind of sense. My dad tried to instill that in me and I didn't listen. As an adult, I think Rick and Morty is one of my favorite animated series right now. Though I am very partial to the Castlevania anime from Netflix. I'm gonna say it's a hard tie between Rick and Morty and Castlevania. Just Rick and Morty's had more time to breathe, and Castlevania is like 2 seasons with a total of 9 episodes. So that's an exaggeration, but it's not. There aren't very episodes to that series. Do you think cartoons you enjoy will ever become HeroClix? If so, which characters would you want to... You know what? I totally forgot that Ninja Turtles was represented. A cartoon. In the game. And they've already nailed that. I can and can't see Castlevania becoming something. So I think that's where I kind of stand right now. Is that and I'm saying cartoon in the sense of animated drawings on screen. So that's how I'm using it. So yeah, I would like to see that Castlevania animated series just turned into a mini HeroClix set, something akin to the WWE or just a countertop display set that has like all the boss creatures that they actually created for that animated series. That would be cool. Here we go. Since I am living in Japan, I must ask about Japanese cartoons, aka anime. Which anime do you enjoy to watch, and do you ever try to listen to it in Japanese? Actually, I've become accustomed to catching, like, if it depends on how early I catch the show. If I catch the show when it's at its peak popularity or early popularity, or just when it's early, I will catch the Japanese version subtitles. But trying to keep up with the Japanese is very difficult for me because it's not a language I'm regular. It's not like French, where on a semi-regular basis I'm exposed to French, being a Canadian, and as a result, I can't really, like, I can pick up on a little bit of enough French when somebody's talking at it to me or talking in general in French. I can catch enough words to know that is French. I understood about half of that, what was said. With Japanese, even with the subtitles, because some things get lost in translation, it is a very easy language in my understanding to get mistranslated, as watching what's happening to Hideo Kojima and his attempts at interviews lately have been a nightmare because translation is very weird with the language. So, no, I haven't spent a lot of time trying to it, but I'm at a hard tie. If I was going to go hardcore animes, because Castlevania's anime style, but done by North Americans. If I was to go with a strict anime that I really like, it's a hard tie between Attack on Titan and One Punch Man. Though I do have to watch the second season of One Punch Man myself. One Punch Man is like the tick of anime. Do you want those anime characters in Heroclix, and do you think WizKids would make it? I want the One Punch Man stuff in there, but I don't want the main character in there, if that makes any kind of difference. Just because representing that is dumb. So, and nobody would be happy with it, and everybody would be angry immediately. If WizKids ever brought back Yu-Gi-Oh! Heroclix, how would you improve it? I make it standard, make it modern legal, and ignore the extra elements such as trap cards, etc. Those were dumb. So just strictly figures and maybe a couple equipment cards, but don't do stupid things like trap cards and spell cards that were like these. That was dumb. It was good. It was like here's a good idea. No, it didn't work out so well. So if I was to do it, make it modern legal so that people actually care to buy it. Don't make them super overpowered, but at the same time make them do funny things, but make them focus on the game. Which Yu-Gi-Oh characters do you want WizKids to redo? I don't want Yu-Gi-Oh characters back in the game. I mean, no. Which characters do you want? I'm going to be 100% honest with you on this line of questioning. I am not a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. And when I went to Canadian Nationals and they made me play in a Yu-Gi-Oh Battle Royale, my first question was, what the hell is a Yu-Gi-Oh? It's not like a Pokemon that is actually a thing and is short for Pocket Monster and has meaning. And granted, yes, that was my funny joke directed at the game. And people will anime explain to me what Yu-Gi-Oh is all about. I don't care. If I wanted to know, I'd have done the research. So I don't personally want Yu-Gi-Oh back in Heroclix. And that's kind of it. Last question. What's your favorite lines from the cartoons you watch over the years and favorite final line from those cartoons? I don't have that kind of memory. I mean, okay, knowing is half the battle is obviously just the most memorable thing that comes from G.I. Joe back in the day, right? My Cabbages, yep. My Cabbages from Avatar was pretty good. So, yeah, I'll give it those. All right, let's talk about shifting focus. Characters that can keep changing from other Heroclix versions of what they are. Please remember to include earlier versions of shifting focus, for example, morph trait for Beast Boy, blah, 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 blah. If you want, you can shout out characters that change once to other versions of the character, but I want to really focus only on shifting focus characters. Best, worst, and... Okay, there's like 6, and he wants me to pick a best, worst, and favorite. Favorite's going to be Beast Boy just because of all the options. Best, I think, was the Superman shifting focus, and worst, Black Panther was not particularly inventive or well thought out. Which version of each of your choices above do you like to start with in a game, and why? Superman, I start with Stoic Superman. Beast Boy, for some reason, like a big old dummy, I always start with a Tyrannosaurus. And I don't start with Black Panther, or I start with Stealth version because put them in hindering, you're fine. Do's and don'ts of running a shifting focus character for competitive and or fun games. Okay. The do's. Do start with your most defensive version to go with, just because if you get caught off guard, you have that reaction time. Next, be aware that when you bring in the next version of shifting focus, As an example, I used a Superman one. The Superman had the range the range combat shooty stuff. It was really cool, but he was squishy as heck. And if I expose myself to a close combat attack because he's primarily focused on energy shield, liquefied in a single shot. And things like that, like the super strength version of that same shifting focus. You got to know which thing that you're bringing in, what it's weak to. So I think that's kind of the big do's and don'ts in general of just how to play the things. Don't expose yourself to the weakness at each level, because shifting focus, what it does is it unilaterally focuses the character in one direction, and then by doing so, it actually exposes it in other places that normally that character may not necessarily be exposed, but you just end up exposing yourself anyway. So just be aware of those exposures and know how to react around them. The characters already have the shifting focus trait. What other versions would you want WizKids to add to round out the character? An example, Batman's first shifting focus was introduced in World's Finest, and they had another one in Elseworlds. Well, I would love to have seen them flesh out the ones from Avengers Defenders War, but they rotated before we got a chance to do that. So, if anything, I think those would be the ones, especially the Doctor Strange. There's so much room to grow on Doctor Strange that I think that would be good. Which comic book characters or non-comic book characters, WWE, should be getting shifting focus treatment? If so, which versions, powers would you include with different shifting focus characters? Name at least 2 or more different versions of that character that you would want. Example, long distance attacking, and the other one would be ninja types. Okay, so in WWE, I think the big thing everybody would clamor for would be shifting focus tag teams. So like the New Day, I want Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods all as a shifting focus, and maybe even give me a Wyatt family with Bray Wyatt, Rowan, and Luke Harper, and even go 4 and give me a Braun Strowman, because he at one point was part of the Wyatt family, or skip the Rowan because nobody's going to make a Rowan that anybody wants to play. What else can we do with a shifting focus? You guys got to be a really multifaceted character. They've already made so many of the characters that could really reflect on it. Maybe do like a Wolverine who's a little bit more soldier focused and a little bit more clawy focused, but and then like a exposed skeleton tough version of Wolverine you could do. I think that's about it's not as super flexible as we want it to be. There's you could do like a Loki, maybe. I think Loki is very prime for shifting focus. But we're kind of running a little low on the shifting focus, as was exposed in Avengers Defenders War. Like, they made an Elektra, and it was like, one's bladey, one's stealthy. Did we need to do that? Best, worst, and favorite sculpture of shifting focus Heroclix do you like? Please give a single version sculpture and the group versions for your answer. And as a group, jeez. I think the Superman one just really dynamically showed what each version of the figure was doing the best. And I'm gonna say as a group, those were the best ones. Favorite is also Superman. I think it's best and favorite. Kind of goes hand in hand in that case. Worst, Elektra, red and black. That's all we got. All right, or even Black Panther. It was like claw, boost. I think it was the difference. They weren't that super different. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna talk about tiny size now. Please include all Heroclix to gain tiny size. Best, worst, and favorite tiny size Heroclix. Okay, I think the best has been like the recent Ant-Mans, especially the one in what was that set? Avengers, Black Panther, Black Panther and the Illuminati. My favorite sculpture are the pucks because they're so small that you can't see them, and all they gave us was a Heroclix space. Worst tiny size? Wasps. The early wasps were super breakable. I wasn't a fan. Oh. You see, I get this sculpture and figure and like on board mixed up all the time. Worst tiny. I try to avoid so much negativity. So back to, okay, so I answer for sculptures. So as far as the figures themselves, I'm still going to go with best. I think that new Ant-Man is really cool. I mean, Tiny has only got so many legs to stand on. Well, no, okay, let's go back to my police team. Back in time to Guardians of the Galaxy was a set, the super rare Rocket Raccoon. I think that's the best Tiny character that I've ever come across. That isn't including the Chase duo from Chaos War that I never got a chance to use, but we did end up winning a copy from a stream. What was it? What was it? It was Hyper RPG? No.
It was before.
It was Geek and Sundry. Geek and Sundry.
Yeah.
All right. Best and worst and favorite sculptures of regular size characters with a tiny size character. I mean, I think there's not a ton of those. I think there's like the Ant-Man on the George Washington, or the Atom, sorry, on the George Washington. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you on that one. Any hints the right and wrong way to use tiny characters in Heroclix? How do I put this? There is lots of wrong ways to do a lot of things in Heroclix. The most right way to use tiny characters is to make sure they're super supporty and, just be able to carry them around, because that's one of the key advantages to having tiny sized characters. They're hard to shoot at because they get that +1 defense against range attacks, but they're super easy to carry. And carrying doesn't allow you very many actions after being carried. So make sure that whoever your tiny character is able to do things after being carried. I think that's one of the best keys to tiny characters. Which non-Clix comic book characters do you want WizKids to make into tiny size Heroclix characters? I can't think of any tiny size characters that I want them to make that they haven't, because they made Despotellus, and I was the Green Lantern version of Despotellus, like the antibody to the Despotellus virus, because that came up in the War of the the War of the Lanterns or whatever. Or non-Clix comic books. I think that's what he meant. Try to make a tiny size team. Note you can use here. Okay, I'm not making a team. Rear at the pocket tank. And what other vehicles do you want Heroclix to make into tiny size, and why? I think there's an Ant-Man ship that he flies into the Hulk to cure his Lou Gehrig's disease. Do that, whatever that vehicle is. I think that was Scott Lang who did that too. All right, let's talk about bystanders and pogs. My favorite things in the world. Best, worst, and favorite bystanders and pogs. Best and worst was probably Lee and Harper. 1 point. If you need to fill in that 1 point, do it. Favorite is, it's a 3-way tie between all the ones that Devil Dinosaur makes. Best overall though was probably a tie between the Alfred Pog and the Mary Jane Pog, because of what they were able to do in the early days of manipulating wildcard team abilities. Some comic book characters were first introduced as bystanders Pogs. Best, worst, and favorite Heroclix sculptures, which were originally a bystander or Pog. I don't know which came. I believe have we made a Detective Chimp character since making the Pog? I don't know. I'm going to double check that just to be sure. Detective Chimp. They did. It's DC 75th. So DC 75th, you got a Detective Chimp, and prior to that, Collateral Damage, we had a Pog. And that's probably my favorite because I love me some Detective Chimp. Worst was Misty Knight. Why was Misty Knight ever a bystander? She should never have been a bystander. She's a low-level character, yes, but not bystander-worthy. She's got like a metal arm. I actually remember making this comment. But of course, they gave her super strength, so there's that. At least they got that going for them. But the best character that started as a Pog, Alfred. Alfred just does so much more than he did when he was a Pog. Best and worst ways to use bystanders in Heroclix games. The best way is to make lots of them and make attacks with them, or just do what you're supposed to do with them. The worst is to make them and do nothing with them. This is a hard question to answer there. Best, worst, and favorite Pog generator. I want to like Tyrannus more than I do, so I put him as worst just because he hurts my feelings so frequently. Best is Devil Dinosaur. Favorite... Probably also Devil Dinosaur, I think. No. Best is Iron Man, if you pay the extra 5 points for the map. And that's the Earth X Super Rare Iron Man. But my favorite is Devil Dinosaur. There we go. Since introduced the special powers to generate bystanders, WizKids didn't include those bystanders, so you're forced to make your own bystander tokens. Only recently WizKids put bystanders in the back of tokens. So in that in mind, do you have any shout-outs for people or websites that can help Heroclix players make or sell bystander tokens? Jeremiah Peterson does some fantastic work with bystanders. He doesn't use a traditional poker chip. He uses these plastic little pucks. They're really cool. I like them. But also Big Willie Games, who are the guys who make our patron action tokens. Those guys are pretty keynote and awesome when it comes to making those things. Should WizKids sell more bystander tokens? If so, what advice would you suggest to them? Okay, so I think this was made before they started consistently putting bystanders on the back of their action tokens. And that's been good, but for the love of God, stop using foil stickers. The reflection on the light is so bad, and there's already a ton of overhead lighting in the games that we play that we don't need that problem being added to our game. We don't have things like matte covers on top of our bystander tokens like you can get for Magic to help that reflection for your foils. So, long story short, stop foiling them. Which bystander tokens should WizKids make in the future? All of them. Just make them. Just make them. And best, worst, and favorite sculptures for Pog generators. Ooh, Devil Dinosaur doesn't sit on my Pog generating. Hey, no, yeah. Devil Dinosaur, Tyrannus, and Iron Man still sitting there. All right. For a real stranger, crazy reason, WizKids hired. Yeah, okay. For some crazy reason, WizKids hired me as a consultant for Heroclix. You're right. Please give your best, worst, and crazy off-the-wall advice in these. So, packaging Heroclix. Best advice. Find a way to bring down the amount of plastic we use. It's wasteful. The worst advice I could do is make the boxes bigger. Because that's just what... Stores already hate keeping these boxes on the shelf. Let's make them bigger. And off-the-wall advice? I got nothing for off-the-wall advice. Heroclix styles. Best advice, make sure they're clear. Let's keep an eye on the process. Yeah, Heroclix sculptures, what would I give advice for? Keep up the good work. Constant improvements have been made for deck. I want somebody to go pick up an Infinity Challenge figure, and I want somebody to pick up a modern day figure and tell me that improvements haven't been made. I'll slap you in the mouth. Marketing and promotions. Do some. I mean, I'm impressed that they've gone to the lengths of getting guys like Xavier Woods on Up, Down, Down. Heroclix, which is like celebrities playing here, or online celebrities playing Heroclix. I know Alana. I know Elisa Foils. Don't know who the third player playing there is, but that's been interesting. Hyper RPG's been good. But, like... I'm these things that you get your comic book characters from, they have ads in them. Use the space, guys. And just bring back some kind of promotions. WizKids and Heroclix tournaments. You know what? The great strides that got made this year in Heroclix competitive play, I have no advice as far as that's concerned. Fantastic job this year, guys. Keep up the good work, and continue to improve. Maybe let's keep Worlds consistently at Graceland for a little while. It seemed to be a really good venue. The hotel was pretty standardly awesome. Overall, thumbs up for you guys. And for the ROC, it's been a transitional year, but still good. You guys did a good job. It's just really on stores wanting to run ROC tournaments is really the challenge right now. And because I live in Canada, our problem is the exchange rate. It sucks. Big time. All right. Non-comic books, Heroclix, and other properties WizKids owns. What advice I would say, perhaps tell Vince McMahon after you've released some AEW characters. Because I want me some Luchasaurus, baby. And maybe call Nickelodeon. Remember you guys had a deal and make me some Avatar. Yep. How to make games easier for newer players. Stop throwing so much information at them. How to keep your game interesting for older players. Stop throwing so much information at them. DC, Marvel, TMNT, WWE. How to improve them. Keep making TMNT. Keep the gravy train rolling on WWE, but convince the stores to buy some more and just promote them somehow. DC, Warner Brothers, ease up. Let them make some more, please. And any other advice about Heroclix? Tighten up the design space. You guys have made some really weird... Oh, and as far as Star Trek, you already boned it, so I can't... There's no advice I can give. Because what happened to Star Trek The Next Generation should have happened to Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm just going to say that. Original series should have been single figure, or should have stayed the way it is. The Next Generation should have still stayed a brick case set. Deep Space Nine should have been where you went to countertop displays. Same with Voyager. Same with Enterprise. If you do that, you boggled that one. But as far as other advice for Heroclix, work on that design space, guys. You're very limited now. Some of your cool ideas just whatever. All right. So this is more Halloween related. Last night I had a typhoon hit us. Ooh, you're okay. Oh, obviously he's okay. He typed the messages. And middle of that, we also had an earthquake too. Japan, man, what are you guys doing to yourselves? So let's talk about scary things since Halloween's around the corner. Okay, well, we're starting to get closer to the current date of things. Best, worst, favorite vampire dial. Also, best, worst, favorite sculptures. Worst is the vampire generic from... what's the word I'm looking for? Undead. Thank you. Favorite... Dracula from Fear Itself. I love him. Come at me, bro. And best is also probably Dracula. Best, worst, favorite werewolf dial. I love the dial on the werewolf and undead. My favorite werewolf, probably that one as well. Worst werewolf dial, probably there was like a version, a kind of a generic werewolf, and I think Amazing Spider-Man that just wasn't as interesting as this werewolf that we're using now. So I'm gonna go with that one. Best, worst, favorite witch, wizard, or magic user. The wizard as magic user. I think Jeanette counts as a witch, right? She's pretty cool. Worst, warlock. That counts. Warlock. Best, worst, favorite Halloween animal. Black cat, bat. Black cat, bats, black bat, brown bat, gray bats. Those were cool. And the bats that come from Zatanna, very awesome. Ghost characters. Gentleman Ghost is up there in my favorites. I'm not a big fan of the generic Ghost, and I love Jacob Marley. Best, worst, Frankenstein. There's 3 of them. Let's go with... And I'm just sticking with the Frankenstein's monster, by the way. I'm going to say favorite Frankenstein is the Frankenstein agent of whatever it was from the DC. I like the generic undead one, and I'm not a fan of the one from Amazing Spider-Man. Best, worst, favorite zombie dial. I hate the I hate the Amazing Spider-Man one. I love the undead one. And Zuvembi, and Frankencastle is probably my favorite zombie. Though he probably fits under Frankenstein, but I don't care. Frankenstein's a zombie. Best, worst, and favorite monster, not man-made. The big green guy from Galactic Guardians. That guy was cool. I love monsters. Carnage. And Proteus is pretty cool too. But as far as worst monsters, I don't know. Pick one of the ones from Undead. Best, worst, and favorite costume that is not originally their costume. Oh, I don't know. Best, worst, favorite costume that is not originally their costumes style, dressed as a different character. Oh, okay. I think the best one is the Hand Ninja Electra. So it's Electra on the dial, but it is a Hand Ninja figure. There's a Wolverine. Who's not a Wolverine? That one's a harder one to dig into. I don't really have a least favorite though, so I always love when they do that. What was I gonna be for Halloween? A father. Watch list and errata and clarifications of the years. Which Heroclix did they put on the past watch list or change with an errata that WizKids went overboard with the changes, fixes to Heroclix or rules, and what would you do instead? I think the biggest overreach was Iron Pharaoh. I would have probably just limited the way he's attacking to strict attacks, not allow powers like Psychic Blast or Pulse Wave to get through it. Which ones did not do enough? Vulture. It's just, and I said it before, in one part of the article I said bad for new players with the green Proteus, but they neglected the new player feel on losing in a turn to a Vulture. That's just ignorant. Which ones missed the boat on the fixes changes that Heroclix were? They're pretty good on, like, as far as missing the boat. They don't really do that. They don't leave a character broken. I mean, they put Proxima Midnight on that one time, did nothing about it, and Proxima Midnight disappeared from the metagame. Didn't disappear, but just didn't make as much of an impact as she did because people worked around it. Which Heroclix or rules never got put on a watch list or never got an errata that should have, and what changes, fixes would you suggest? What should have gotten a watch list errata and didn't? I can't think of anything. They've been pretty on par. Maybe Nick Fury? Maybe? That's about it, though. Do you think WizKids is doing a good job with their watch list and fix here? For the most part, yeah. I mean, I may have one nitpick. I got no problems with how they're doing with it. How would I improve future watch lists? I wouldn't. They're doing fine. They're doing fine on that. I mean, it would be nice to see reprinted cards with watch lists and erratas, but that takes. I'm sure there's an exponentially higher cost than the worth value on that one. All right. I think that's all we can handle for tonight because I've done a lot of these. So we're going to delete a bunch of the ones that I've answered already. And we're probably going to address more of these in another move at attack. I just wanted to give a little treat for Malcolm and guys because this is probably going to be the last episode of this show that's called Into the Mind of Madness. I do believe it's going to be... I'm going to work on renaming the show back to Metafix. And we're going to go back to high-level discussion about everything. We're not going to give hardcore answers. I'm going to limit the amount of time I spend addressing specific teams, though I will use them as examples. I'm just going to go back to that mode because I preferred it, I liked it, and it's just generally the way I work. So, Into the Mind of Madness was fun. It was a pleasure running the show. But just kind of retagging and going back to old, I'm trying to go back to a lot of the old way of doing things and working around that. So I'm also planning on trying to bring back Dial It Up as a show as well, to kind of help make sure we all understand the rules as they are, because interactions are important and we have to know how we're interacting with things in this game. And I think the WWE brought up a lot of complications that I wouldn't mind just addressing directly. So with that said, and with the watch list, so we still have 4 sets of Malcolm Rush's questions to go. My goodness. I'm probably going to leave some of these for the Metal Lab, to be honest. All right. Got that. Okay. 3 sets of questions, so we're good. In the meantime, guys, it has been a pleasure talking with you through Into the Mind of Madness and sharing my experiences and my forward thinking for tournaments and sharing little bits of my life. We'll probably return with this show to spend a little bit more directly talking about my plans and what I'm planning around as kind of an extension of the future of Metafix. But in the meantime, it's been fun going through states. Good luck to anybody who has states this coming weekend. Hope to see you guys next week on Metafix, and we'll talk about some high-level philosophical conversation again about the game of Heroclix and whatnot, and maybe talk about a figure and why people are talking about that one or ways of kind of addressing the game. But I hope you guys who did go to your state tournaments had a ton of fun and enjoyed yourself. I hope any of the stuff that I did throughout or anything I talked about throughout this helped prep you. If it didn't, in the comments, just say, Jason, you're useless to me. I hope you never do the show again. And then I will continue to do this show and just kind of find a shirt that says my teams are not advice. Because they aren't. Don't look at my team. You look at what I'm talking about with dealing with my team. That's the trick with the show. I'm always trying to trick you. I'm always keeping you on your feet. Anyway, so in the meantime, guys, you have yourselves a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. If you're playing in states, good luck. Hope you do well in your state championship. I hope you've been able to use the information that's other people have been sharing from the event to help you with your success. Thank you for going crazy with me. You guys all have yourselves a wonderful evening, and I'll see you soon.